Today, in recognition of Earth Day coming up soon, we are delighted to have Susan Whitlock, as our speaker. And Susan has been a member of First Presbyterian Church since 1997, and she's a serving elder and chair of our worship committee. Susan holds a master's degree in American culture from the University of Michigan and a master's of divinity from Ecumenical Theological Seminary of Detroit and McCormick Seminary of Chicago. Most of her paid work has been in book editor. Her unpaid, at least so far, passion made poetry, theater, and the environment.
Thank you so much.
Susan has been a climate change champion for First Press for several years. A few years ago, she put together a really nice in-person activity, which actually got changed to being virtual because of COVID. And she was also recognized as the climate hero for January of 2023 as our nominee of the Climate Heroes Group, which is a collaboration of religious institutions supporting climate change. So today, she's here to offer a challenge to First Press members as an Earth Care congregation. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Diane, very much. And thank you all for coming, and happy Earth Month. I don't know if it's that when we say we're going to talk about Earth Care, it's the death knell, or if it's just that Earth Month comes in April and people want to be outside instead of in a room. So hello to those of you watching later, and I hope you had a great time outside. I wanted to begin with sort of an opening prayer by quoting a piece from St. Francis of Assisi's Hymn to Creation. It's not the whole thing. The Canticle of the Sun. I'm using an older translation, so we'll forgive the sexist imagery this once. Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother Sun, who is the day through whom you give us light. And he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor. Of you, Most High, he bears the likeness. Praised be you, my Lord, through sister moon and the stars. In the heavens you have made them bright, precious, and fair. Praised be you, my Lord, through brothers wind and air, and, fair and stormy, all weather's moods, by which you cherish all that you have made. Praised be you, my Lord, through sister water, so useful, humble, precious, and pure. Praised be you, my Lord, through brother fire, through whom you light the night, and he is beautiful and playful and robust and strong. I begin here because I want to situate the move that our church has recently made to become an Earth Care congregation in the context of a long Christian tradition of caring for the earth, of which St. Francis is probably the best known symbol. And I also want to note that the tradition is not only long but broad. The saint's namesake, our current Pope Francis, who was able to be in St. Peter's Square today for the first time in a long time, praise be, he addressed people of goodwill in 2015 his remarkable Laudato Si, in which he laid out the science and the human origins of our many ecological crises, as well as the theological underpinning of what our response should be as Christians. I could quote the whole document and we wouldn't go amiss, but I'll limit myself to 2 sentences. We are called to be instruments of God our Father, so that our planet might be what he desired when he created it, and correspond with his plan for peace, beauty, and fullness. And today, we have to realize that a true ecological approach always becomes a social approach. It must integrate questions of justice in debates on the environment so as to hear both the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Finally, I want to invoke atmospheric and climate change scientist Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, who is an activist and also a practicing evangelical Christian. As Christians took the Bible seriously, we would be at the forefront of every action in the fight to limit the worst effects of climate change. So, in our own approach to the multiple and deepening crises the world now faces, environmental crises, the Presbyterian Church in the USA developed the Earth Care Congregation program in, I believe, 2013. And if I haven't out-fancied myself, there's just a short video I want to show you.
In 2010, 15 years ago, the PCUSA launched a national program to certify and celebrate environmental ministries in our congregations in worship, education, facilities, and outreach.
Each year since then, the program has grown. Even during the pandemic, when churches couldn't do their normal earth care activities, the program grew. In 2024, we certified 331 congregations in 41 states. 10% of those, 33 churches, were brand new this year, and every year we're adding more and more churches.
And every year they recertify in those 4 major areas of congregational life to demonstrate their ongoing commitment and to grow their witness. With an annual recertification and a checklist, it's a more thorough program than some. By encouraging congregation-wide commitment and annual reporting, it can change the overall ethos of a congregation. That earth care ethic becomes ingrained in a congregation's culture, spreads to the surrounding community, and impacts personal lives of individual church members.
This denominational program for churches has been incredibly successful, and it's the individual churches that deserve all of the credit. These are churches that are hosting outdoor animal blessing services, they're protecting wetlands, which means preserving local homes during flooding seasons. They're adopting solar panels to allow congregations to offset the electric bills of their low-income neighbors, and they're creating habitat projects that protect local biodiversity. Our Earth Care congregations are vital parts of their communities and unrivaled witnesses to caring for God's creation, and we're so thankful for their work in the world.
It really is a growing program, which I think is fabulous. It's one of these cases where if we follow where our denomination leads, we will be in a good place, and we are trying to do that here. I think they may have said this, but the Earth Care Congregation program actually grew out of the Presbyterian Hunger Program, which, by the way, is one of the programs that is sponsored with the One Great Hour of Sharing that we give to every year. And what I like about this is that, as we heard also in the Pope's encyclical, it evidences from the start that our efforts to recognize the well-being of humans and the well-being of the earth are connected. It's not a matter of choosing people or choosing the planet. This is a false choice we're often given, it seems to me, about, well, you can do what's good for the economy or you can do what's good for the planet. And they are absolutely, completely interconnected. We have to choose both. So the Hunger Program casts a very wide net, and in particular recognizes that hunger is a very complex phenomenon that can't be solved until its root causes are eliminated. And because in the work that the church was doing in that area, they began to recognize the importance of environmental causes, in particular climate change and environmental racism. That was the impetus for then creating the Earth Care Congregation program as a way of not only making positive change, but also lifting our consciousness about that same interconnectedness. And so the good news is that as of about a month ago, we became an Earth Care congregation. How we got there was straightforward, if not brief. I know the thought has been around for a few years. But earlier this year, the worship committee got behind the idea, and on behalf of the committee, I brought the idea to session in January of this year. I think it was January. I don't know, I could have the dates wrong. Something like that. Maybe it was earlier. September, you're right, it was September. And then session was required to adopt the so-called Earth Care Pledge, which I probably should have also put up on screen. But it has a little preamble, and then the pledge is this: peace and justice is God's plan for all creation. The earth and all creation are God's. God calls us to be careful, humble stewards of this earth, and to protect and restore it for its own sake and for the future use and enjoyment of the human family. I think the for its own sake is very important. As God offers all people the special gift of peace through Jesus Christ, and through Christ reconciles all to God, we are called to deal justly with one another and the earth. 1. Our worship and discipleship will celebrate God's grace and glory in creation and declare that God calls us to cherish, protect, and restore the earth. You heard them talk about 4 areas, so worship is the first. 2. In education, we will seek learning and teaching opportunities to know and understand the threats to God's creation, and the damage already inflicted. We will encourage and support each other in finding ways of keeping and healing the creation in response to God's call to earth-keeping justice and community. 3, and this is a big one, our facilities will be managed, maintained, and upgraded in a manner that respects and cherishes all creation, human and non-human, while meeting equitably the needs of all people. In our buildings and on our grounds, we will use energy efficiently, conserve resources, and share what we have in abundance so that God's holy creation will be sustainable for all life and future generations. And then finally, 4, our outreach will encourage public policy and community involvement that protects and restores the vulnerable and degraded earth, as well as oppressed and neglected people. We will be mindful that our personal and collective actions can positively or negatively affect our neighborhood, region, nation, and world. And we will seek to achieve environmental justice through coalitions and ecumenical partnerships. And I would venture to add, and interfaith partnerships as well. I could have made this a handout, but hey, that would have been a lot of paper. You can find all this on the PCS USA website. So, yeah.
We can put that on our website too, so that's where to do that.
Great, thank you, that's a great idea. So I learned a lot from the Hunger Programs website and the Earth Care website, and you would too, if you have the time. So we had to adopt that pledge, and then Sandra McDonald, who is going to come in at any moment, may she be ever blessed. Sandra McDonald took on actually doing the application this year. Look at that! Woohoo! That's okay. Well, we're just getting to you, Sandra. I was just saying that you filled out that application. Which is one way to think of it is kind of an environmental audit in those 4 areas that I mentioned. And we had to establish that as a church, we have made commitments to address those 4 areas: worship, education, facilities, and outreach. So I am wondering if after she blows her nose, she could tell us a little bit about the kinds of things that got us points enough to become an Earth Care congregation.
Yes, I could, and I first have to say, I think there's been.
Microphone, please. Right behind you.
Sorry. That's.
I think it's on.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. Oh, okay. I can't even hear it. I have terrible allergies, so I travel with a tissue box. It's that sort of thing. we've had, I think, a commitment to caring for the environment for a long time before we talked about being a care for creation church, and that's went a long way to helping. In the 4 categories, there are 1 or 2 places, probably in every category, where we're weak, and then there are 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 places where we're actually quite strong. And some of them are because of intentionality, and some of them are just random good luck. Because, for example, in the area of worship, it is extremely important, and you get a lot of points, if your windows will open. Well, thank God our windows open, because if they didn't, we would become a puddle in the middle of the summer. So that gave us points, not through any particular wonderful effort of our own. The other thing in the area of worship that gave us a lot of points was the Jazz Vesper series, because that's 3 outdoor worship services, and that gives us a lot of points. So that's a good thing. In another area, in the building and facilities area, I think we've had a long commitment here to replacing light bulbs. How many light bulbs do you think are in this church? 1,200? It's thousands, and I don't know, I didn't count them. But what I did, Adrian and I walked around counting places where he knew there were LED or other eco-friendly kinds of light bulbs. Well, we've done very, very well with that, as it turns out. That sounds like a silly thing, but that gave us we got a lot of light bulbs around here. So that gave us a lot of points. There's some other things. Our heating and cooling system did not give us anything good. They don't give us much good. But if we go to geothermal, which is the hope, that will give us massive points. So we're at least on the right track with that. In the area of formation, I actually went to the library. One of the questions was about library books. Well, I did not count the books in the library, but I did scan the shelves, so to speak, looking for titles that sounded eco-friendly, and I mean, the Lorax is in the library. That's
Yay.
That's a good thing. And then, would find a title and pull it off the shelf and say, yeah, this counts. So I was able to say we had, I've forgotten the number now, but whatever number of books in our library that dealt positively with the environment. Now, an area we're weak, in their eyes, is outreach with our efforts. You get a lot of points if you offer environmental education more broadly than just within the congregation, or if you partner with groups that are doing environmental education kinds of things. I don't even have a clear path in my mind exactly how we'd go about it, but it is certainly an area for growth, and that would give us the opportunity to capture some new points, because the deal is you get points the first time through, but you don't get those same points the second time through. You got to have new points, and you renew the certification every year. I don't think we're in bad shape. I think we will be able to renew nicely, except in a few somewhat troublesome areas, because we need to think about that through the year. And one of those areas is going to be outreach, somehow sharing our commitment to the environment more broadly than within the scope of our own building. And there, once we put that out there, there'll be people who are willing to do that and
can
able and excited about doing it.
And we've made one start just recently by having a group of people write postcards for the Environmental Voter Project,
Yeah.
which in order to form a more solid block of environmentally voting vote.
And that,
Invite other congregations to join us to do that in the future.
yeah, we certainly could. We need to think about potential partner congregations. I went right out of this into the residency stuff, which is what they pay me for. So I thought I ought to attend to that, and didn't. I mean, I'm going to have time now to breathe and think about what we might do within the congregation related to earth care more methodically. I have let the staff know that that it's really important for them to communicate, because for me, for example, to know that there's a whole unit in some children's formation class that relates to the environment would be pretty random. I might hear about it or I might not. What I need is for someone to say to me, hey, we're doing this. The very fact that we're having this class is a very good thing. 'Cause that'll give us a probably something like 5 points. Points. It's all about points. It's all about points. Anyway, so I sent an email to the staff, and I've reminded them in staff meetings that when they come up with something, or if just randomly they're reading through their curriculum guide and it talks about the environment, send me an email. I've got a file. I'm sure Susan has a file. We are just putting things in there that will eventually next January add up to points that we can use. And it's of course not about points. I'm kidding, and you are kidding. It's about doing the right thing and doing what we can to preserve the earth. And in a pretty messed up world, it's nice that there's something orderly and positive that we can do, hopefully without getting into much of a fight with anyone over it. So I think I'm very excited about it. It's a big deal. If you want to be amazed about something, there are in the Great Lakes region, they call it. It's a little bigger than our synod, but it's a region in some other aspects of the denomination. There are 1,192 churches, Presbyterian churches, and out of that 1,192, there are about 10 that are earth care certified. Mostly actually right around here. There's one other one in Ann Arbor. I should be able to tell you who that is, but I don't remember.
Westminster, I think.
Yeah, I think it is Westminster. But you would think churches would jump on it. I mean, it's so consistent with what we should be about. But, and maybe the denomination hasn't publicized it well. I don't want to place blame. But my first reaction when I looked over other congregations, I said, why? Why is this such a small number? Well, we can help with that. We can do publicity through the presbytery. There's stuff we can do. So we have all of that on our minds and want to get certified again next year and for every year thereafter, for that matter. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Microphone, please.
Oh.
Thank you.
I would think we would get points for.
So just put it here.
Okay. We are not very good at recycling. We're terrible at it. And I would think that but though, Chris, people do not throw those in the recycling. They throw them in the trash. If you look at coffee hour, it's really bad. And then some of the events, we use bottled water. We don't need to do that. That's appalling. In my opinion, anyway. And we would get good points for that, I'm sure.
We certainly would for recycling. Bottled water actually did not come up, but that doesn't mean
we don't do the right thing.
do it. The recycling, we do pretty well with with copy paper, but we do not do well at all with things like I myself take my cans and bottles. I drink more than a few Diet Cokes in my day. Well, actually, I drink one in a day, but I generate a lot of cans. I take them to David Vandermeer's and mine. I routinely take because we don't recycle them here. That is certainly an area of growth, and I don't think we're horrible about paper, but paper, I'm talking flat paper, paper that we use for that sort of thing.
This is why I bring my own cup every week, and eventually, hopefully, we will be able to get mugs that we use, that we clean. It's a matter of staffing right now. Chris, you want to?
Seems to me that one easy thing would be clearer signage and more obvious recycle as opposed to throwaway bins, because we're sort of weak on that.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this because my other church, where Ruth and I are associate members in New Hampshire, is a small UCC church that's climate committed and peace and justice and all of the stuff. The coffee mugs works very well. It's harder for me, I was thinking about this morning as I was coming, it's harder for me to figure out, well, it's going to be harder to scale that up, because you go to coffee hour there and you may even find your regular cup and then at the end we all go in and wash them. But it's a good idea, and there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for more, and it's old-fashioned. It's like coffee hours 50 years ago.
A lot.
Yeah.
Way more than other churches I've been a part of. So I don't think we're embarrassing ourselves there. But
Sid had something.
I'll follow you.
Just in.
You heard it here first, folks.
What did I say? So in light of your connecting to organizations, both for everyone here and for what you're looking for points, there are 3 organizations based locally that you're probably aware of. If not, they're always looking for volunteers, donations, memberships, and so forth. One is the Huron River Watershed Council.
Yes.
Which covers the area from Milford through Ann Arbor down to Lake Erie. It's a very large area, very active. I can put you in touch with the executive director if you want to join somehow or other, talk to them, find out if there's some way to make connection. Also for everyone here, they're always looking for folks to get to join in. Another is the League of Conservation Voters for the state, is based here. Lisa Wozniak, she was at the march yesterday, but I can put you in touch with her. And the Great Lakes Initiative, which is part of the National Wildlife Federation. I think they may be in danger of losing some of their funding, but Laura Rubin is ahead of that. Anybody that's interested, particularly in the first 2, I can put you in touch with or give you a connection way to get in touch with them. But they would be good to partner to find out what kind of opportunities are. Watershed Council, the League of Conservation Voters, and the Great Lakes Initiative.
Thanks, Bill.
I was just going to say, this is on a different topic.
Okay. Yep.
That some of the some ideas for educational opportunities is to have kind of first pres reads. And because my field is life writing, I was just on trying to bring up some of the books that I've written. written in passing about, but there are some really good ones, including this one by a woman named Flowers called Waste. And she grew up in an impoverished area, I think, of Alabama. She's African American, and it's about toxic waste and where it was put and how it decimated African American communities and how she became an activist out of that experience. And there are other, I mean, some of the classics, of course, to read, but there's more and more now about environmental racism and toxic, not just toxic masculinity, but but toxic extraction, the politics of extraction. And so I could see having a whole set of reading groups going on reading various things.
I wouldn't even mind having a group reading the Pope's encyclical because it is so comprehensive and brings in, of course, the gospel and where it leads us. But yeah.
I was just going to say one other thing related to that. But of course, 3 seconds passed, and so it's left my head. You know, what I'd like to see in worship, I mean, this is my own hobby horse. I wish we would have a part of worship where we're not just reading the Bible, we're engaging with the important thinkers in church history, but also political figures that are talking about aspects of what we are hoping to achieve and the values that we have. And so, like reading from the Pope's encyclical, just have here's something the church is involved in. We would like you to hear about the importance of this, blah, blah, blah. So, we can do a faith in action.
Yes.
I just want to add to her comments, and that is both of us are on the Adult Formation Committee, and so we can definitely, now that we have been certified, take that to that group and see what we can be offering through the year around Earth Care. So, and Nancy's on that committee too.
Yeah, I haven't attended a meeting yet, but you know, I will be shortly. I just wanted to say that in terms of resources within our own congregation, Jennifer Day, who recently lost her job, unfortunately, with NOAA, she was into Great Lakes restoration work, and I think we would all love to hear from her. Yeah, and the other, this is an aside, but I just learned a new word today by looking at the front page of the New York Times, ecocide. And it has to do with Ukraine and the absolute ecological disaster that the Russians have perpetrating against the Ukrainian land and people. And it's an important issue for us all. Yeah.
This is so great, and I'm gonna stop now just because there's a couple things I want to know, and I want to be respectful of and I want to be respectful of people's times. But this is exactly what we're going to need. I am hoping in the near future to form a kind of a smaller Earth Care team so that Sandra and I aren't the only point people, and we're not doing this alone. The also from the PCS USA, there's a guide to greening congregations, also on the same website, which we can use. So there's a lot out there that will help us, and I've also been in touch with someone at First Tecumseh who is starting just a sort of a group of people who are leading Earth Care in their own congregations to share ideas. So, you know, it's the expanding circles. But I wanted to just say one other thing, and if people need to leave, that's fine. And that is to talk for a minute about climate change, that we are very used to, we want to be able to show something we can do, and there's nothing wrong with those things we can do easily, like recycling. But they, while related to, they aren't our biggest threat right now. That is not where we need to really focus as much of our mental energy as possible. We're 10 years out from the Paris Agreement, which was the UN, almost 200 countries that agreed to try to lower emissions. Of course, we are for the third time, I think, out of that because of our current administration, but doesn't mean we can't act as if we were in it. Emissions have continued to grow every single year in those 10 years, though they are growing at a slightly slower rate. We are at the point where we cannot stop climate change. That ship has sailed. What we're trying to do now, bring the emissions down so that we can limit the damage that it will do. And so I just wanted to give you one scary statistic. Because as individuals and as the church, we have to be thinking about our potential impact on this in everything we do. So consider this. Between 2008 and 2016, the annual number of people who migrated because they were forcibly displaced from their homes due to unlivable conditions, annual average, was 21.5 million. No. By 2022, that number had climbed to 32.6 million people who move because their homes have become unbearable. By some projections, by the year 2050, if we stay on this course, up to 1.2 billion people will have been displaced because of environmental problems. That's how bad it is, folks. So we've got to keep in the forefront in our mind. Like I said, consider the potential impact of everything we do as individuals, as a church, as a community. Share ideas as we've been doing, and how do we lower emissions? This includes our lobbying and our voting. It's not going to happen because First Press alone went to geothermal, though this will be fantastic if we do. And you can't always make every decision with the best ecological one. So my example is, we're not going to ask a child to take the bus to the hospital if they're sick. No, somebody's going to drive them, right? It's not about being perfect. It's about considering every decision and where you can, making the best decision you can. Deb Haaland, who was our Secretary of the Interior, is now running for governor of New Mexico. She's Laguna Pueblo. And I remember she spoke at Rackham, and it was kind of a stump speech for Joe Biden. I was a little disappointed just because I wanted to hear more of her thinking, but she kept getting questions about climate change. And she won my heart forever, because at one point she just started to cry, and she said, "It's really bad, and we just have to all do the best that we can do, and we have to do it together." So our individualistic ideology in the USA in particular has led to our carbon footprint, right? We can afford to do everything alone. We don't have to carpool. We don't have to take the bus. We can afford to. But the earth can't afford for us to do that. And the church, I think of us, we know how to act, or at least we try to know how to act as one body, the body of Christ. That's a great model for how we're going to have to approach this. Other faith traditions have other great models. There's a whole bunch of Jewish climate action networks around the country. It's not that we are special, but that this is our way of thinking about collective action. Okay, so I want to return to, and then probably got to let you go, but I want to return to Catherine Hayhoe, who I mentioned before. She sees all the time in her work the evidence that what moves people to action around climate change and other environmental concerns is not the science. It's a four-letter word that we all know, L-O-V-E. That is what motivates people to change. So she has a group that she's part of called the Science Moms, and they put together and paid to have aired during the Super Bowl this year an ad, which I'm going to show you if I can make this work.
As a scientist, I know by the time she takes her first breath, 9 billion more tons of carbon pollution will be in the air. When she takes her first steps, wildfires will have burned millions more acres she could have explored. By the time a child born today goes to college, it may be too late to leave them the world we promised. Our window to act on climate change is like watching them grow up. We blink and we miss it.
Greta Thunberg, the people know who she is, the Swedish young person. She, probably her most famous quote, and I love it, is, "Once we start to act, hope is everywhere. So instead of looking for hope, look for action. Then and only then, hope will come." And as dire as this situation is, I take hope from even the tiniest things, because we're at a point where everything matters. Everything matters. So my husband makes fun of me constantly because I do these really weird looking things. And one of them is, when I am waiting in a parking lot, I pick up cigarette butts. Because cigarette butts go down the drain, and they go into the river, and they go into the oceans. And in case you think this is a small thing, here's the statistic I found. According to NOAA, over 2.4 million butts were collected off beaches and estuaries worldwide in 2017, up from 1.8 million the year before. And the current estimates are that, small as they are, tiny as they are, those little bits of plastic that are the filters, butts constitute between 4 and 10% of the plastics released into the ocean annually. If you smoke, if you know anyone who smokes, don't just toss the butt. But this is the thing. Every time I pick up a butt, I feel a little bit better because it's something I can do. So anyway, that's where we are. I and Sandra will want to hear more of your ideas. We'll want to know if you'd be interested in being part of an Earth Care team. I will probably be bringing that greening guide to every session committee. Say, look through this. What could you do? What could your committee do? And we'll move ahead together, and we will find partners in everything we're doing. And then to end, I want to go back to, if I can find him, I want to go back to the encyclical to Pope Francis, because there's a beautiful, beautiful prayer at the end. Would that turn out to be the one thing I didn't bring? Let's see. No, it's called A Prayer for Our Earth. So if you would join me in prayer. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey toward your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. Amen. Thank you.
We want to thank Susan for leading us today in this discussion, but also for being the leader of getting us to the Earth Care process, because it had been sitting out there, and she really has been one to move it forward, and of course with the help of Sandra.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for, again, being our climate hero.
Well,
thank you.
Great, thanks. Oh, look.
And here's a small token
it's beautiful.
of our
Thank you.
appreciation for your presentation.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
I have just recently made the decision to really, really care for my houseplants again. So you know how it goes. So I'll start breathing on these. Thank you so much.